She's sitting there with her Erlenmeyer flash, sexy. I said, oh, no, no, no. You sexy and you a mathematician?
Right?
Nah.
And I'm getting mighty tired of your trifling ways and of listening to that jackass Bray.
So welcome. I appreciate everybody coming back. We got episode 10 of the Ethereal Philosophy Forum. Jumping right on in with my band, Donnie Ali-McClendon. I am super excited to have you, brother. It has been damn near 20, I was doing the math, I think almost 22 years of association, my brother. Recently just got back together and super excited to have you on the show. I just want to get you introduced to my audience and let everybody know who you are, what you represent, man. So why don't you go ahead and let us know what's going on, what you got going on.
Likewise, started everything off by saying, man, I'm still learning. So whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm going, whatever we're doing, man, we're still learning. So it's always a learning process.
Always.
But I'm Donnie Ali-McClendon. I'm from Childs Park. I'm from St. Petersburg, South St. Pete, born and raised.
Yes, sir.
I'm an educator before I'm anything else. And sometimes life is so interesting when you have a purpose and you have a particular trajectory that your life is almost born into being, then you tend to manifest that in everything that you do. So there's nothing that I've ever done that I haven't ended up being a teacher in so doing. I'm a lifetime martial artist. I hold a black belt in Taekwondo, hold a black belt in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm also a judo student of Dr. Roddy Ferguson, which I guess puts me also in the BJJ line of Libero and Carlson Gracie and that crew, that family. But a lifelong martial artist, kickboxing and striking coach, corner man, boxing coach, Muay Thai coach, done it absolutely everything from soup to nuts, man. And glad to see you personally again, because it's been a while, man, since we were breaking hearts and taking names.
For real, man. For those of you that might not keep up with the ins and outs of the in-betweens of what we do, when I'm talking about, coaching athletes and all the other stuff that we're doing over here at Aetherial, when I talk about 2 decades between interacting with this gentleman here, you got to understand we were on the come up as two very, very strong young men coming up as headhunters on the football team in Boca Ciega High School, ready to take some heads. And all of a sudden we're fast forward, 22 some odd years later, we're running into each other at my very good friend Tommy Carpenter's gym. Donnie's leading a program teaching striking. I'm in there learning with my buddy, teaching my students while my gym's being built. And we again get to cross paths, like I said, 2 decades later. At this point, going from students in the game, learning what we're doing, learning how to execute leverage on other individuals. Fast forward 20 years later, we're now teaching people how to impose that same leverage on other individuals. It's a beautiful thing, man.
Yes. And for all of the people who will be listening and tuning in, wherever we are, know that Jay is really good at imposing leverage on you. And there's still some people who got depleted and they still have their cleats still in the field. So maybe I think if we send an archaeological dig out from the university, we'll be able to.
Hey, we're still looking for ear holes on the Boca Ciega football field, ladies and gentlemen, from Mr. Ali-McClendon over here.
Oh man, that was definitely.
Those were the days, man. Hey, lots of stories of glory from those days, man.
Oh yeah, but you know what, Jay? You always had the kind of personality that you always had an indomitable spirit.
That's it.
Bro, you never walked in a place as a stranger. You have that countenance, and that countenance is something that
I can say the exact same. Leadership, it doesn't matter what's happening. Leadership has a way of finding leadership and rising to the top. It doesn't matter if we're talking football, politics, community. It doesn't matter. Leadership is always going to be leadership. Period. And maybe. Would that be a good leeway for you to go ahead and speak on what you specifically are doing in Childs Park, in St. Pete with Urban Survival? What are you guys up to? What's your mission statement? Talk to me.
Urban Survival's mission statement is very, very easy. It's kind of taken in a way from the mission statement of the original teachers of Krav Maga, which was into evil walks in fear. And the idea behind urban survival was in 2012. I finished my career in the United States Army. And I came back home and I decided to wanted to throw myself back into athletics, but I wanted to throw myself into competitive martial arts. Long story short, I decided, I can take it from the perspective of a competitor, or I can take it from the perspective of a teacher. But what do I want to teach? So now, 2012, you're getting a real big boost in MMA. Now, MMA is really on the mainstream in 2012. But then you get the camp of, and I like to call it the Rickson Gracie camp, of don't forget that martial arts is originally for self-defense.
Absolutely.
And I think my heart got moved more in that direction. And I said, with the knockout game, I don't want to date myself, but there was a thing called the knockout game around the middle part of the first and second decade of the 21st century. And people were actually creeping people and stealing on them and knocking them out cold. Well, people felt as if that they were being preyed upon, and that sentiment was brought to me, and it started out real small. I said, Donnie, could you do a seminar in Charles Park, just a basic self-defense seminar? So naturally, me being a nerd, guys, we also Jay and I also nerds. And we were nerds in school too.
Right?
But
it's
nerds,
okay. Come fight me.
Yeah, we were nerds who could fight.
Exactly.
So my, being that I sat down and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I came up with just a basic small curriculum of what a person could have, they could learn in a seminar's time, so that between the seminar and that trip to the car, if they got attacked, could they effectively defend themselves? In the middle part of the 20 teens, there was also the two competing camps of strikers and grapplers. We hadn't yet evolved to the fact to know that these are two complementary parts of the same whole, which is martial arts. So it was, should I strike or should I grapple? Should I pull guard on somebody in the middle of a parking lot and get stomped out by 50 people? Or should I try to box a guy who takes me to the ground and has me in mouth to oh, he's choking me out? We didn't understand the balance between the two. So I started working with a person, he's deceased now, Alex Cruz, who was working out of Synergy. He was also very good friends with Master Lenny, rest his soul, and Master Tommy. And Alex and I began to work together, put things together. We put together a brief video, and it was basically the same essence of Gracie Combatives, but it was tailored to more of a street confrontations. This is what happens. This is how you effectively use these things. You might need to go to Ogoshi. You might have to hip toss somebody. But in order to hip toss somebody, you have to be aware of your surroundings. So urban survival kind of brought everything together, and condensed it to our own little hood version of Krav Maga. And it kicked off. It got really, really big. We began to spread throughout the Tampa Bay area. We're working in Clearwater, we're working in St. Pete, we're working in Tampa. We were doing seminars. We were just rocking and rolling. The thing that slowed us up a little bit was COVID. Absolutely. But in between that, my life kind of took a shift, and it took a shift when I began working at USF. I began working in the history department. I'm a historian by trade. I'm a trained historian. So with that being the case, academia came, and academia kind of swept me up. I got locked into archival research and rocking and rolling. And then when I began teaching at USF, and I actually began being a professor of courses, well, that was another big shift. So I think that now, as we settle down coming out of the pandemic and people are able to get face to face again, I think that we can make all of this stuff kind of come together again and be pretty successful. Man, that's the long intro.
It's beautiful. I love the long intro, by the way. But the synergy is something that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. Over the last 5 years, just kind of superimposing my story on some of what you were talking about. Very similarly, I've found that all roads have kind of come to this giant crescendo of this is where you need to be. Here's the people that you need to affect. Now just go do it. So I can very much appreciate that type of effect that you're feeling in your own life and affecting on other people. It's a beautiful thing, man. Realizing the types of things that you're doing, the types of things that Aetherial is doing, it's very much part and parcel for us to kind of be coming back together at this time and helping each other go forward. So it's an awesome thing for me to be able to see, and you know, knowing the you know, I'm not putting any cards out here that nobody knows. I was about $160. You couldn't have been over 170, a year older than me.
Man,
but
listen,
knowing that, cat,
Jay,
when I was a
listen,
freshman out there collecting chins and seeing the heavyweight champion that's in front of me right now, it's a wrap, dude. It's game over. But it's a testament to the process, though, right?
Definitely. I tell people all the time, man. I found the weight room at about age 26, and I tell them that, and it's funny. We laugh about this, and I laugh all the time with my wife. When I was in the Army, they lined us all up for immunizations, and on your DD-214 in the military, was your military records, your medical records. There's just a bunch of numbers. You don't know what they give you, right? So after they shot me up, then I felt like, man, within the next week, where I was knocking out like 30 pull-ups, man. I said, what the hell did they?
They gave you the serum,
I don't know
bro.
what they gave me. I don't know if they gave me the super soldier. Whatever they did,
man.
Jay, I came back.
They gave you
My
the
wife
serum.
my wife saw me for the first time after being away. She saw me. She's like, who is this dude? I came back, man. I was ripped. I was yoked. Yeah, I was yoked, bro. I was yoked. So,
hey, listen, not everybody got the good serum, so I guess we'll count it as a W, right?
Yeah, they hit me with the juice. My head got bigger too. So I said, no, they got to hit me with the juice.
They got you with the Barry Bonds juice. Ah, he said it too, Barry Bonds. Oh man.
Yeah.
So for those of you that are on Instagram, obviously you guys already follow me, Aetherial_LLC, and you guys see what we're always up to, a competition between me and our coaches, and we always try to stay on the cusp of what's happening. I encourage you guys to also follow Urban Survival and check out some of the stuff my man Donnie is got going on. But speaking on that and kind of getting a little topical, it's the realist. And that's kind of what I want to get to. One of the biggest tags that I've seen on Urban Survival, and this is for everybody in my audience as well, MasculineFrame is the hashtag. MasculineFrame. So for all of you people out there that are hearing the word masculine and cringing just a little bit, it's okay. We're here for you. We're gonna ease it just a little bit for you, but we're not gonna take any of the sting off of it. It is what it is. Okay. But for those that may not know, or maybe are a little bit unfamiliar with you and what you represent, why don't you explain what the hashtag MasculineFrame means to you in Urban Survival?
Gladly. Being a historian, I won't be as wordy as
me.
No. Jay.
I'm kidding.
Loquacity is something I usually get. Yeah, barely. So, around the middle part of let's take it back. We're going to take it back between the years of 1865 and 1877. In the United States, American Africans, I use the term American Africans instead of African Americans, and I'll explain that later. But the American African community in the United States had to rebuild itself. And it had to rebuild itself from the institution of chattel slavery. The first thing that was done in this process was the coalescence of family. Men, husbands, women, wives. Why? Because during the entire history of slavery up until the point of 1865, the passage of the 13th, 14th Amendment, it was illegal for American Africans, Black people, to marry. So the first thing these industrious individuals did, now I call them industrious, why? Because the reason why the South was so poor after the Civil War is because the South had effectively gotten rid of all of its skilled workers who were enslaved individuals. Right. So they literally built the South. It belonged to them if they were going to be the possessors of it. They were dispossessed at the time, but they had the social wherewithal to come together in family units because they understood that family was the basic unit of human survival. Now, that concept, that idea stood forth throughout Jim Crow, throughout lynching, throughout the civil rights era, some of the hardest times for American Africans in the United States history. But around the middle part of and late part of the 1960s, the counterculture movement invested in an idea. That idea was to create a gynocracy in Black America, which was a system that was ran completely and totally through the will of women. Things like welfare, things like housing subsidies were all created, but these in the creation of these things and the fair deal of the Johnson administration, what we found happening was that men had to be removed from the home. They had to be removed out of the household.
You don't
when
get
the
a
social
check.
worker came from the government,
Yeah.
no. When the social worker came from the government, if that social worker saw men's shoes or men's clothing in the closet, no check. So the idea was, we can exist in this world without men. Now, around the end of the 1960s into the 1970s, you find the intersectionality of the feminist movement. A lot of great things came out of that. A lot of horrible things came out of that. If we weigh things dialectically and stop looking at them unilaterally or looking at them idealistically, then we can reason on matters. But again, that's the kind of reasoning that's been taken away in general from people at large, especially those who see the world through this lens of competition between men and women. We'll hit that one a little later. So as we go forward in the 1970s into the 1980s, these policies continue. And from that policy of a man not being allowed to be present, then you have the false idea or idea based on false premises that a man does not need to be present. So now when you have the idea that the thinking that you can produce families without men, then that turns that gynocracy, that gynocratic thinking into misandry. Now niggas ain't shit. Is that right?
Right.
Now we've taken the same ideas that came from antebellum slavery. The idea of a man is not a valuable human being. He's not a person endowed with intelligence. He's not a person endowed with emotional intelligence. If he can't fuck or make you money, he has no value whatsoever.
Correct. There's no possibility of him being a capable leader of the family.
That's it. And what that does then is that takes the idea, the concept of man, particularly heterosexual man, because the heterosexuality of that man is considered invasive. He wants something from you. He then turns to Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger. He's the boogeyman. Right? And you hold your power as long as you can keep yourself away from this scary, malicious, malignant character that is a male. So now you have the concept of fear being associated with manhood, and you have young men who grow up fearing manhood. And they fear masculinity because masculinity is a threat to the gynocratic rule that's held in the communities. And if people don't necessarily want to subscribe to the idea, we'll just give a couple examples. When you're cracking, when you're ripping jokes, when you're bad mouthing someone, how many times have any of us heard, especially those of us who've been in the hood, anybody say anything about somebody's dad? Hey man, what? Your dad fat. And then it's fisticuffs. That doesn't usually happen like that.
Never.
Like that's not something
not
that
once. Never. Never.
It doesn't happen, right?
Nope.
But if you say anything about mother, aunt, sister, or grandmother,
On site.
then it's then it's Richard. You know what I'm saying? Keep my wife's name. Now,
Right.
mind you, it doesn't matter how many jokes you tell about LeBron James's hairline.
Right.
Right. You know, we can laugh at LeBron, we can laugh at Terry Bradshaw's hairline, right? But if you even think that somebody's gonna say something about your wife's hair that she's shaving, oh, you gotta come and slap him. Why? Because she can, even if you're laughing at the joke, if she side-eyes you while you're laughing at that joke, why? Because you move at the beat of the gynocracy.
Absolutely.
So
in check at all times.
That's it. So masculine frame is a movement. And the movement is making masculinity what it is, which is an accepted principle that comes with manhood, and attaching everything positive with masculinity. And I'm of the belief that the only thing toxic about masculinity is when it's absent.
I'll let that one sit and aerate for a minute, y'all. The only thing toxic about masculinity is its absence. Think about that. For those of you that are fans of hip hop music, let me point you to the last 10 years. Okay. You don't have to agree with everything you see and hear, but you can very easily just look at what's being put forward and shoved into your household, right? We go from the late end of the gangster era, right? Saggy, tatted up, Wayne, yada, 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 yada. And over the last 5 years, we see a hard shift and transition to what? Skinny jeans, purses, jewelry, things that would typically be associated with the feminine build or the feminine frame for these gangsters, these men in the community that are supposed to be top dog in terms of masculinity or testosterone, right? The gangsters, the dogs in the motherfucking block, right? But these are the cats wearing dresses and jeans. So where's the masculinity in the community, right? It's being obfuscated. And I think that's exactly what you're getting to. Pop culture has made it popular to obfuscate masculinity. So much so, and this is my opinion, so much so that other groups are finding the need to pick it up to progress. Because if masculinity is completely dropped, guess what? I hate to tell everybody out there, humanity's over. That's it. It's a wrap. It doesn't work anymore. I'm not going to say it's just masculinity, but that's the whole deal, y'all. It takes both of us. It takes men and women to procreate, right? Not boys and girls. Men and women are what procreate. So if you don't have one, the other can't do it on their own. And now we've gotten to the point, so much so that we're so lacking on the masculine side that we're seeing women step up and put that hat on and try to take over that role. And now we're starting to feel the repercussions within our own communities. I'm not just talking about the Black American community, the African American community. I'm talking about community as a whole. This isn't just a problem that we're seeing. This is a problem everybody's seeing. Being a man, being a masculine man has become, like you said, toxic to some people. I can also look at my fiance, who's a grown, strong, secure woman, very strong in herself and who she is in our relationship. And she can look at me and appreciate the fact that she's got a masculine man that knows how to take care of business and looks after his family and does what he needs to do. Now, to her, that's something that's put on high, on a pedestal. But she could easily look over to her left and to her right and see two contemporaries that may or may not see things very, very differently, yet still living in the same world. So for those people that are maybe living side by side with somebody, they do see it side by side with somebody that's maybe living in a separate dimension within the same world. What would you say to those people that are maybe recognizing this stuff and don't know how to talk to their partners about it?
I would say that the initial, I think, problem, I think the initial misunderstanding in all of this is that when we're young, those of us like myself who came up through public education, we're taught to see the world ideally. We're taught to see the world through idealism. And when I say that, I'm using the idealism in its philosophical framework, that ideas create reality rather than material conditions create reality. And I say that to say this. When you see a world, I'll give you a brief example. I think all of us were in our early primary school, kindergarten, first grade, maybe even pre-K. And our teacher would tell us that she would say, or he would say, close your eyes and imagine that you're on the beach. Now, what do you see on the beach? You know, and people will close their eyes and they would actually start feeling, they believing that they've invented the beach right there in their imagination. And that meant somehow that the beach was real.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that you imagined from your experience. Notice they didn't tell a bunch of young people in Florida, close your eyes and imagine a blizzard or nor'easter.
No,
Right? Because they would look around crazy in the face because that wasn't something that was part of their experience. They couldn't imagine that, right? So I think that we were taught early to imagine a world that existed and to be comfortable living in that imaginary world. Mm-hmm. Well, what that does with your ability to reason is it makes you think that the world itself, the material world around you, bends to your imagination. And that's just not how it works. Since it doesn't work in that manner, then we have to approach ideas with reasoning that's not idealistic. Our reasoning has to be dialectic, meaning we have to be able to ascertain what is a thesis, what is an antithesis, and what is a synthesis. What was created in the contradictions between man and woman, between male and female. And from those wrestling with those contradictions, then that's how we ascertain where we are and what we have. Now, my thing is this. Okay, Gabby, suppose you are single, independent, strong, and don't need a man, and you're a woman. Okay, cool, got it. Now, if we take all of those qualities and we place them, juxtapose them with the fact that there are 70,000 missing Black women in the United States this year alone, and it ain't even June yet. Something is wrong there because strong, independent, and don't need a man usually doesn't end up with 70,000 missing people. Tell you what else, let's just do this. The vast majority, the overwhelming majority of women want to be married. Overwhelming majority. Okay, cool. 1 out of 4 Black women will ever be married. Strong, independent, don't need a man does not equal marriage. Doesn't work that way. So now you have a contradiction, but you don't have a contradiction because this magical man is not there. The magical man lives in your brain. No one else is responsible for him but you. You're the one who thought him up. But you are responsible for the material reality of, hey, I want something and I can't imagine myself into it. That means now I have to find a different way to reason. So I would say that if people would look, contemporaries would look to their left and look to their right, then they would see the reasoning behind things. And a lot of the reasoning comes from fear. But a lot of the fear comes from the fact that fathers like yourself and myself were incentivized 30, 40 years ago to not do what you and I are doing now with ours. So I think when you make decisions, there's a part of the brain called the amygdala. It's about the size of an almond. What the amygdala does is it's a throwback to our more reptilian days. But the reason why when you walk past a bush, if that bush shakes, you jump. It's because our ancestors, when the bush shook and it was like, huh, they're the ones who usually got eaten by whatever was coming out of the bush. And they couldn't pass their genetics on, right?
Absolutely.
So when the bush shakes, you jump. Not just that, Jay, not just that, but unless you just feeling yourself. When you feel like that back take is happening, you adjust. You shrimp. You shrimp for a reason. You shrimp because you know, hey, I don't want my back getting taken. Why? Because I don't have eyes back there. And people do real funky stuff like integration. And he's real leggy, and he reaches over stuff and he grabs you, you know.
And we are not meant to defend ourselves back there.
We're not. We're not. We're meant to run away.
Yes, we are not built for that.
Hence why we're so fast, right? So when this bush shakes, that triggers the amygdala, and it goes right past reason. You don't say, I wonder what's making the bush shake. No, when the bush shakes, you're out, right? The amygdala, when it works with human relationships, it does the exact same things. People see things that scare them. Sometimes these things are unfamiliar things, like a person coming up to you and saying, you have a gorgeous smile, or good morning, or opening a door. If it's foreign, it's scary. So the first thing they associate that with is fear. Why? Because the amygdala allows you to jump past reason right into response. Okay, it's a survival tool. But what does the scientific method give us? Gives us a way to figure out the world where we can apply reason to things. Now, if you apply reason to the fact that you have 2 million more, and I'm just talking about Black people now, just now, it can apply. But you have 2 million more Black women than you have Black men in the United States. That doesn't count anything else, no more factors, just raw numbers. You have 2 million more Black women than you have Black men in the United States. If Black women want to be married to Black men only in the United States, best case scenario, you have 2 million people that'll still be single. So now what we have to do is start thinking, okay, well, if that's the case, the probability is one person will probably attract more than one mate. If he's attractive to you, he's probably attractive to more people than you. But when you jump past your fear, you can see that. But your fear says, I don't want nobody that's oh no, girl, all them people want him. Oh no, I don't want to be dealing with him. Why? He too pretty. Too many people gonna want him. These are unrealistic things, ideas, imaginary fears that cause us to not be reasonable. Absolutely. So I think that that's the thing. I think that when we apply reason to things, then we'll be able to better understand. And dialectical reasoning, to me, is the best reasoning we could.
It's in hearing and digesting what you're saying, it's very difficult to ignore the well, we're not going to pull punches, the concentrated effort that's been put forth over the last 30 years or so to devalue people that look like you and me being in the household, to empower these situations to take place to where people feel as if they can go, you know what, he's too this, he's too that, it's not worth it for me, versus being able to see the value of the intact family unit and what that it can actually represent to generational wealth within the family, let alone just the individual family member. So to address everything that you're saying, we have to, and you hit on it before, talking about the 80s and the war on drugs and crack cocaine being introduced into communities and the harsher sentences of crack versus powder cocaine. All of this is a concentrated effort to specifically remove the Black head of household. So as we fast forward, the fact that these Black American women, as you're speaking of specifically, we're talking about this group. And of course, if anybody sees this in the chat and you want to tell me how wrong I am, please feel free to throw your comments in there. I'm happy to discuss this with you. We see 2 to 3 generations of Black females coming up underneath that rule of law, that the Black man is shit. He's not worth it if he's there. And if he is there, he's nothing but a problem. You got to get rid of him so that the real man, the government, can step in and pay your bills for you.
Yes, and that's been the campaign, the literal campaign of so many people especially a lot of these armchair liberals who think that, you know, this is something that that's going to advance their career. You know, they say things like they say things like we have to have a black woman on the Supreme Court
or a vice president.
Yeah, oh yeah, but and it's interesting. It makes you think. You know, you
Right.
think, okay, well, I guess, but you wonder then about, you know, what is in that reasoning,
Right.
not saying that they're not qualified at all, not at all,
I
but
am.
wondering in that reasoning.
I'll say it.
in that, well, I tell you what they represent.
Absolutely.
They represent the largest consumer base in the United States.
100%.
70% of every dollar is spent by a woman, and black
or
women spend
or on women.
Yeah,
or on women.
That's the rest of the 30%. But 70% is spent by women, and then black women outspend the rest of all other women by 19%.
Absolutely.
So the best way,
the largest consumer base in the country.
Oh wow, but you don't want to shortstop your cash flow.
Absolutely.
So what do? You make a culture, you create a culture, and you gear it to stroking the egos, the very fragile egos of people that you know are going to continue to buy your stuff.
And create
that's an excellent way.
Images of beauty that are unrealistic. You sell products to attain said standards of beauty. You put up shops and procedures and techniques, and you train classes of women to make other women look to this standard of beauty that's unrealistic for beautiful black women. And you make an entire market on marketing to those insecurities after creating this unrealistic standard of beauty. And then you're able to sell products to that market with an unfulfilled market cap. It's going to consistently need because there is no end line. There is no, hey, we've reached it. We're at the point where we're socially acceptable and we feel pretty. There's no end. It just keeps going and going and going and going. And guess what? Absolutely. We got more products for you. Your hair's not quite straight enough. Why don't you come on back? Absolutely, man. It's disgusting when you break it down, but it's what it is. It's allowed the powers that be to turn several generations of Americans, and we can get out of black, white, Americans, people that are here building the foundations of this country, into valueless consumers. You are no longer putting anything into the system. We are only specifically taking out. We are only withdrawing from the system. There is nothing to put into the system, because if you have no inherent value, you have no intrinsic intelligence or societal value, whether it's through a career, motherhood, knowledge, being a learned teacher, a scholar, anything. You can teach sewing, you can teach cooking, you can teach mathematics. It doesn't matter what you're teaching, spreading the knowledge, right? A lack of all of that combined with, I need the government to pay my bills, equals 2, 3, 4, 5 generations of what do I do next? Oh, what do I do next? What do I do next? We're incapable of free thinking, right? It becomes a rule by decree very, very easily. Uprisings and free thought and opinions and free will are out the window. It very easily becomes rule by text message decree. Hey, stay in your house. Okay, the phone says stay in my house. I'm gonna stay in my house. Why? No man in the house. I never learned how to think for myself. I never learned how to exude my masculinity and take charge of a situation. I've never learned how to deal with mistakes when I make them, because I was never allowed to make mistakes in the first place. All this stuff comes into a violent crescendo and we end up where we're at right now.
Or I'm perfect and I can't make mistakes. I'm infallible. Why am I infallible? Because I'm and it's the most.
That's the other side of it, right? My mom said I'm perfect.
That's it. And it's the most disgusting fake opulence,
right?
Because it's the idea is that I have divine right of rule. I'm a queen, or I need a king.
Absolutely.
I think that when we look honestly at what happened in the 18th century to real monarchies, you know, people don't want to be ruled by despots.
No.
But when you make it something that somebody asks to be, what, I'm a queen, what, I'm a king, have you looked deeply into these terms when it's perfectly okay to just be a worker, to just be to be a contributor, to be a citizen, to be a parent, to be a brother, to be a sister?
The word citizen, I think, is lost entirely. Entirely. I don't think people grasp what that actually means.
Yeah, until they have to stop at customs. Until
that rubber glove comes up to the elbow, right?
For a lot of them, then you're all kind of citizens. Right. My goodness, don't get me started on Broward County Airport. Cause for a lot of their airport, you ever want to wonder if you're an American citizen? They
International flight
coming back in from the Caribbean. When you throw that American passport up there, and he's like, okay, whatever. What else?
But it's real when you really think about that, man. Like it's almost become popular to not be a citizen, to just roll with the tide, to be a yes man, to just get run over like that. That's the more popular thing to do. So much so, and you mentioned it before, that we have phrases like toxic masculinity. The fact that phrase can exist in the same world that I operate in as a caring, compassionate, loving human being, a father of a 10-year-old daughter, who I love more than anybody on this planet, that phrase bothers me to my core. And here's why. Not because my masculinity is toxic, because my 10-year-old daughter knows the difference between her mother and her father. She can go to her mother for certain things. She comes to her father for certain things. The reason is because she knows her dad is a strong, secure man. When she needs to feel that security, when she needs to feel the strength of her father, and she needs to feel like shit is getting handled, guess where she comes? She comes to her daddy, and it's okay. I've done my best to reinforce that in her, that she can come to her daddy and put her head on my shoulder, and daddy's always going to be here for her. There is no possibility of anybody being able to explain to me that the fact that I am a man that handles my business and takes care of my family is toxic in any way, shape, or form to my daughter. So again, kind of going back to what we're talking about, to have generations growing up on phrases like toxic masculinity, it does not surprise me that we're seeing this as an end result. But it also begs the question of what is the end game with some of this sub-programming that we're seeing going into not just the Black community, but communities as a whole, because this is becoming rampant. Obviously COVID kind of accelerated some stuff with people in terms of the workforce, but more people are realizing now more than ever what they do and don't want to do. And the government has made it a little bit easier for them to make that decision to not do it if they feel like it's too hard to make their living. Well, cool, we'll get you a check. Will it be everything you need? No, but we'll pull some strings here and there and figure some stuff out for you. Oh, there's not a man in the house? Cool, we'll get you some groceries. Oh, you got a man in the house? Cool, your money went away for a little bit. Oh, he's gone now? Bet, we got you on your groceries again. Well, what kind of behavior do you think that's going to incentivize? So you're telling me if I get pregnant and have babies, I get money, but if the man's in the house, I lose it. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to keep getting pregnant and keep telling the dudes to step, because y'all are just going to keep giving me checks. That's how it works. Cool. And then we get ladies hacking the system. I say ladies loosely. We get females hacking the system. And here we end up. You got 2 generations of people being raised by women that were okay collecting checks from the government and not having a father in the house because they were incentivized financially to do so.
Correct. And I mean, that's spot on, and it's an accurate historical analysis. And so in game, because I believe that individuals have the power to influence the material conditions around them. So if you've been, I'm sure, on my Instagram or my Facebook, you'll notice that I oftentimes speak to fathers speaking to their sons. And I because I have 2 sons, 16 and 14 years old respectively. And that's a very interesting, pivotal time in their life at 16 and 14. So when I speak to them, I learn from what they have to teach me, and I'm able to, I think, communicate with other men who share my experiences. Now, my father, Jay, was like you. He had 5 daughters and then me, and I'm the youngest. So I was that last prayer that he threw up. Either that, I was the curse.
Hail
Either,
Mary.
I'm either gift or the curse. We'll see how both. But no. So I say that to say that I tell men all the time, be very, very careful with your seed. Be very, because what we end up doing sometimes, and we do this because of our biological needs, we incentivize that kind of behavior with our presence.
Absolutely.
If we stopped having sex with women who had the reasoning to continually get pregnant for a check, then women will not be able to continually get pregnant from a check, or they will do it without our help.
Yep. Or it'll be one dude out there with 500 kids because nobody else is doing it.
It'd be one dude. What's the rapper name? What's his name? With 1,000 kids.
Oh man,
I don't know, but it'll be another Nick.
Right?
He's called Nick, right? So I tell men all the time, you know, her IQ is as important as her HIV status.
Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. I'm trying to get them cheeks, Donnie. Come on, nobody wants to hear that.
That's it. They want it. That's it. But now listen, I got you. But there are natural consequences.
Absolutely.
Because there's some cheeks that's connected to some just brick blockhead airhead bras. It's some stupid women out there with banging bodies that end up getting smashed and end up taking the general IQ, because you put your gene pool out there, man. See, people don't look at this thing. They get on me a lot, Jay, because I married a whole scientist. My wife is she has 3 degrees, and she's a scientist. Now I'll tell you, I married the baddest scientist in the lab, though. Like, look, listen. When I come through the lab, you see how that lab coat? Hey, listen, that lab coat. Look, we got to bounce.
Hey, if we can see cheeks in a lab coat, you know what time it is.
I'm telling you, with that Erlenmeyer flask. She's sitting there with her Erlenmeyer flask, sexing her I said, oh no, you sexy and you a mathematician? Right. Nah. We about to have some super fly powerful kids. They're gonna be skinny in their teens. They're gonna be skinny in their teens. But when they hit 26, they're gonna be jacking it up.
Put that weight on them.
But no, Jay, I tell men all the time. I tell men when they're looking for women, don't just look for, understand the difference between a woman that's fuckable and wifeable. Understand the difference between a woman that you just want to have sex with and a woman that you want to build with. And know that whatever you invest in, well, that's where you're going to get your return in. So there are a lot of gorgeous women who are in academia, who are in martial arts, who are in every different walk of life. Just like there might be some bad bras at the club. The key is, where do you want to? If I'm going, I like to fish. I'm from here. I'm from the beach.
Hey, it is what it is, man.
All the way. But I know when I want to catch brim and when I want to catch snook, I can't catch them together.
Nope.
So if I want to catch redfish, I can't go and catch redfish in the same place that I go catch crappie. It's not going to work. They don't exist.
You said something very key, and I want to emphasize it. I don't want you to lose your train of thought. I want you to continue on what you were saying. But you said something extremely key at the beginning of that statement, and the difference is a woman versus a bad bitch at the club, right? Like, you use very different terminology for those, and I want to make sure people really key in on that. Donnie's talking about a woman as a partner versus the baddie on Instagram, the baddest bitch, XYZ makeup, whatever the fuck you saw on the video, this, that, and the next thing. We're talking about a woman you can build with, a woman versus a female. Go ahead.
Ooh, that's all right. So I gotta dig down to the pimp bag for this one. So I explain something from the pimp bag on this one, and that's in knowing the world of the game. A whole never respect a trick. She can't. A hoe can't respect the trick. She can't do it. It's not in her. It's not in her. And the reason why is because she knows that if he's willing to exchange money for something as valuable as his seed, he's not worthy of respect. Because he's trading something. See, hoes are real smart. They know that they got to get their pimp that money that day. Why? Because pimps understand fiat money. And fiat money, there's this thing called yesterday's dollars and today's dollars. And today's dollars are always worth more than yesterday's dollars because fiat money is always slightly increasing in value because things are always slightly inflated. Sorry, rather slightly decreasing in value because prices are always inflating. So hoes know this. So when dudes think, men think, boys, fellas think that, oh, I can get her with this, then that's fine. You're going to get something. But just understand that that's what you're getting. You're getting what you invest in. So I say that to say this, that women will only, this is why martial arts is so important. This is why every man who can should learn a martial art. It's because women respect men who know how to control themselves. And you never learn how to control yourself until you're placed in a situation where you must control yourself.
Absolutely. Being comfortable in the uncomfortable, forcing yourself to be controlled in uncontrollable environments, pushing yourself beyond the limits. And those of you that follow the channel, I'll go back to it every single time I have the opportunity. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling were that for me. It is the calm and the chaos. It appears that it's just a battle of wills. I'm fighting the person across from me, but there's so much that goes into that moment, that moment, that clash of skills and wills. What Donnie's saying is so spot on. You can't have a grasp on your capability to react in a situation, whether good or bad, to control yourself, to dictate or lead in a situation, if you're not used to functioning in a high stress situation. Because the first time it happens, and it has happened to all of us. Donnie is a champion martial artist. I've been a martial artist for almost 20 years. It's happened to both, guaranteed. More times than we've won, it's happened. The first time that you walk out there, what happens? Oh, shit. Shut it down, right? If you don't train for that, there's no possible way to react to it in a real world scenario. And it goes back to being masculine, to that manliness, to manhood, the thing that's attracting womanhood. Is a man, like you said, that can control himself. The only reason he has self-control is because he's trained himself to control himself in these situations. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Most definitely. And the emotions are the sail of the catamaran or of the caravel. Let's use the caravel. Emotions are the sail of the caravel, right? But reason is the pilot. It's reason that steers this thing, because the winds of change are fickle, they're chaotic. And so you find oftentimes women have to be adjusted to chaos. They have to be normal in that. And you say, well, Donnie, oh my God, that sounds like misogyny. I'll explain it from a scientific standpoint. In order to hear a baby crying, when fathers and mothers, we respond two different ways to when babies cry, right? Babies cry, and this the dad way. Here we go. Fix it. We don't care what it is. Like the baby could just be teething, or could be colicky, or whatever. We want it done right in silence immediately. I don't want to hear that crying no more, because our brain works on the idea of rational fixing. It has to be some reason why it's crying. Just give the baby this, and the crying stops. What do moms do? They say, it'll be all right. Just give him a minute. He has to cry for a minute, and he'll go to sleep. And a bad mom, when a baby starts crying, will go grab him and pick him up. And now the baby knows that chaos is in control. It knows that loud noises and crying makes me get whatever I want.
Absolutely.
And it starts working on that conditioned stimulus because now chaos rules. But women have to be acquainted with chaos. Once every 28 days, a woman's body undergoes chaos if she's not pregnant. A menstrual cycle is chaotic. and that chaos gets pushed out into the world when women have to deal with the world while they're while they're menstruating. You know, it can come off as anger, it can come off as, you know, indifference, it can come off a lot of it, but it's chaotic. Women, the feminine principle is chaotic. The masculine principle, therefore, can't be chaotic, or chaos will rule. You know what happened if you just put up a sail and you didn't have anybody piloting the boat?
So subject to the wind.
It'll go in.
Yeah.
And it's the wind will dictate then the flow of everything else. Now, if you're wise and you know how to control the winds, then you'll also know how to control everybody who's controlled by the winds. Then you can set up things like beauty supply stores and sell people their culture. This is how things work.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
And this is how people think. So the masculine frame has to be reason, it has to be intelligence, and it has to be order, because that's what's needed to balance the feminine frame. Notice, you don't ever see me say anything about feminine frame. It's for the same reason that you don't ever hear me arguing LGBTQIA+ ideas. I don't do it because there are better people who are qualified to do it than me. One, I can't tell you anything about gay marriage because I didn't marry a gay person. And if you have a problem with gay marriage, then don't marry a gay person. What if
you can't, hold on. You are not allowed to be that logical, bro. It is 2022. We cannot have that kind of logic in a conversation. I got to flip a table or something.
That's the masculine frame. That's the masculine frame. Why do we have to go anywhere else with this?
Man.
And when people ask you, they chime in, they're like, hey, what about, let's talk a bit about trans rights. And I'm like, well, it'll probably be better if you talk to a trans person about trans rights. Now, what I can tell you is about cis hetero rights.
Absolutely.
I got that.
That's what I do. Absolutely.
That's what I do. Exactly. But I can't give you a rundown of how femininity should work for women. I can tell you what I look for.
That's honest. There's a lot of people, and I don't typically get political just because there's a lot of that, like to the point of excess. We try to discuss and break down ideas more than politics. But there's a lot of that in terms of a certain side of the aisle that will, especially when I'm dealing with people of a different color than myself, that will superimpose what they're told that I believe onto me without actually speaking to me as an individual, and them not realizing how insulting that can actually be. So these ideals that people hold overall, even in, and some of these people that I'm talking about would probably, if you ask them, would consider me a friend. But now on the other side of it, I would have to remove them from that category because you don't care enough to talk to me. You just put me in a box based on what I look like. Right. But these ideas, these thought forms, they come from somewhere, right? The idea of I can do it on my own, I don't need no man. The idea of what you're talking about with these other groups trying to ask you to infer your opinion based on the rights of other people. That's kind of how we've adopted societal influence, unfortunately. And it doesn't really make sense. What the fuck is somebody to come ask you and me about lesbian rights for? It doesn't make any sense. The same way that I don't need to go ask a a well-off, affluent liberal that's never had a full-time job about how a black male should feel about my rights or injustices that I may perceive. But that gets lost on a lot of people. You know what I mean? It's to the point where everybody that you talk to will just walk up and have an opinion on some shit. Well, why the fuck would Donnie want to lecture me about gay rights if Donnie's not a gay man fighting for gay rights? The same way as I'm not going to sit here and tell you about a white woman's rights, because that's not my point of expertise. I can tell you my perspective. I can tell you about my interactions with people. I can tell you how I think you could be a better person as a whole, but I can't identify as what you identify as. So when we're able to take that kind of step back, we're able to understand people a little bit more. But I think the overarching umbrella that we're all getting caught in is that identity politic umbrella. You know what I mean? I'm this, and because I'm this, I should feel this way.
All the time. It's like the politician who lives in the gated community telling me, a person who's a staunch two-way guy, well, no, we don't need guns in the inner city. Well, you don't live in the inner city, sir, and you didn't just get jacked on your way to anywhere the other day,
right? You also have private security that you pay $70 grand a year. Exactly. That all carry weapons.
They got a gate.
Yeah,
they got a gate.
All your private security's got a gun.
I'm telling you, because they got to pay extra for the armed security, dude.
Exactly.
They're not gonna go with the unarmed.
Exactly.
Clipboard. No, they need a whole SWAT team. They need Blackwater at that stuff. You know, but they tell you, oh, you should be okay.
You don't need a gun. What do you need a gun for?
Yeah, just good old fashioned kindness. That's what
you
need. You need to pray for those who use you despitefully. No, that's not gonna happen, because when he coming knocking on the door, he's not coming with a green Bible. He's coming with a Glock, and he's gonna put it in my face, and he's gonna break me down, and he's gonna make me strip, and he's gonna come through, and he's gonna take everything I have.
That's it.
Why? Because he understands that he has the balance of monopoly of violence. There's no balance in the violence. It's another thing that you get from martial arts, is you understand that that person in front of you is just a mortal human being. If you apply pressure to their carotid arteries, they will take a nap.
That's it.
All humans will take that nap. All. I don't know about other primates, but I imagine that if you grab a bonobo just right and you apply that pressure, that joker's going to sleep. Why? Because anatomy and physiology, science. And I think that that's what it is, Jay. I think that what we're seeing now is a world that's flying in the face of science. And I think that's what's needed. You just had the Ketanji Brown, Justice Brown, new Justice Brown, not being able to answer the question of what a woman is. Now, she was the editor of the Harvard Review. She was a clerk for the Supreme Court.
A learned and arguably extremely intelligent woman.
I know that she's extremely intelligent, and she's not first generation. Her parents were extremely intelligent people. So she came up through extremely intelligent individuals. And I know, at least I think I know, that she understands what an XX chromosome pair is and what an XY chromosome pair is. One is a male, the other is a female. Now, do you have outliers? Yes, but whenever you're doing statistical analysis, the outliers are never accepted as the norms. They're accepted as exceptions and outliers.
Exactly. That's why it's called an outlier.
Hello.
A
man is a person with XY chromosomes. A woman is a person with XX chromosomes. Boom.
There's a specific reason they won't answer that question, though, because the definition of woman is adult human female. There's a reason why it's not being defined or explored, because it's entirely too definitive to fit specific agendas.
Exactly. And those agendas, they may be very idealistic. And again, I say that very, very much so. And I'm sure they can be converted into some sort of material reality. But I think that we have a material standard. And that material standard is our biology, our anatomy and our physiology. Now, suppose we believe that that anatomy and physiology is not ours, then that's another contradiction that has to be worked out. But if we want to have a general interpretation of something, we generally say that the sun is 93 million miles away from the earth. We generally say that. Are there times the earth may ease in and out? Yes. But is the sun on average 93 million miles away from Earth? Yes. So I think the assault is on science.
Absolutely.
I don't think that the assault, I think that they're using rhetoric to assault science.
I would take
I
even a step back from there and say that the direct assault is on logic as a whole. Not science specifically as a field, but logic as we see it. Because you can even take a further step back and look at over the last couple of years and see that language has been changed, almost unrecognizable. Language isn't a thing anymore. Words, for lack of a deeper meaning, stick with me here. Words would be a signpost to point to an idea. I'm saying this to suggest that point. I'm pointing to it with my words. Look over here and join me at this point. Let's see if we can come to it together. That it very dramatically shifted to letter of everything that you said. If you said man, when you say hello to me, hey man, what's going on? Did you assume my gender? Well, no, it's just a general colloquialism. I was saying hello. I wasn't calling you a man. It's just something that I said. To the overcorrection of where we're at now, where nothing means anything. Nothing means anything. Words are just sounds now. It's just shit coming out of your mouth. It doesn't mean anything. I can say Harvard Law Review, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and that might not mean anything to anybody. I could say toxic masculinity. That might not mean anything to anybody. But at the same time, somebody else right next to them, I could say those words too, and they have a whole different definition for it. So the words themselves, the definition of words, language as a whole, as we understand it, especially in English, fucking doesn't mean anything anymore. Because I could hear one sentence and you could get something entirely different from that. And I can honestly say it wasn't the exact same a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. I think that the rhetorical emphasis has been very confusing for many people, especially with the definition. Going forward, I think that even the words urban survival, they're lampooned by that guy in Detroit, Detroit urban survival guy. He drives me absolutely nuts.
Oh, he ruined it for you.
because this is a serious thing, man.
So real quick, my boy Chris, who I was hoping would jump on, he said he had family stuff tonight, but he is the guy that does my firearms training with our company. So he's the NRA certified firearms instructor. I do the martial arts, he does the gun stuff.
Awesome.
But when I told him I was talking with you and we're going to do an interview and get you on the show and hang out, he's like, oh, you mean the dust guy? And I was like, get the fuck out of here. No, I said urban survival, not dust. But it's funny that you brought that up. Don't shake your head, man. I sent him your info. I showed him who you are. Man. But yeah, well, it's something you got to think about. No, he's like, you mean the dust guy? Oh, no, man. Dude, I'm not interviewing the dust guy. What the fuck do I want to talk to that guy for?
Yeah, that. But again, this is the this is the way that the things go. Absolutely. And I think that it's a little harder to do. And this is something I think I'm bent on doing. It's making masculinity cool again. I think that that's possible. I think that there's enough in the world of masculinity to make it cool. But again, I also think I want to make academia cool again. I'm an academic. I really enjoy being an academic.
I think that goes hand in hand, honestly. And I think being a scholarly, learned leader in your community is one of the most masculine things you can do. I
agree. I think it beats the hell out of I mean, there's very little masculine about being in prison. You know, being locked up with a bunch of other dudes, having to smell a dude's, you know, feces, you know, that's right in the cell with you. Hey, who want to be there? You know, but if men don't understand that there's certain things that are passe, especially about the 20th century. I tell people who think that the drug dealing is like the thing to do. I tell them all the time. I say, you know, do you know what our sputter is going for? And they're like, what's that? I said, well, okay. Well, do you know what pure vanilla extract is going for? Do you know what jasmine is going for? Do you know what rose? Do you know that oud is $50,000 a kilo? And they're like, what's this? And I say, listen, you have to expand your gangster. If your gangster can be bottled up into trying to sell something to somebody that they're already addicted to, you're not a hustler. It takes no skills to sell somebody something that they're addicted to.
Zero.
So expand your gangster, expand your game, you know, trust in your nuts and muscle up and learn something. Learn how to be an aircraft mechanic. If you like G5s, what do you think happens to a G5 if it doesn't have a tune-up? They don't fly it. So who do they need? Does Floyd Mayweather need his jet more than his jet needs Floyd Mayweather? Hell yeah. Because if Floyd Mayweather gets on that jet and that jet ain't together, ain't no more Floyd Mayweather.
That's it.
So he needs to have somebody that has the wherewithal to know how to fix that. If Floyd Mayweather eat collard greens and doodle in his house and block up his drain, then he's gonna who's he gonna do? He gonna take his jewelry off and use it as a snake and break up a turd? Is he gonna do that? Is he gonna break a turd with that Cuban link? No.
He's getting right on the phone.
No, he's gonna call a plumber and you set the price. So all of these are things. I mean, a butcher, you know, somebody who knows fine. And I'm a cigar aficionado. Well, I'm learning to be a cigar aficionado. But a bonchero, el rolero, people never think whole companies will have 3 roleros and 5 boncheros. And they'll be running that entire warehouse. And a bonchero is the person who puts the tobacco together and binder. And a rolero is the person who rolls the tobacco. Man, people don't even think. You got a whole warehouse and you got 3 people who know how to do something. Of course they can demand what they want to make.
Absolutely.
Law, supply, and demand. But no, you got to know economics. Very briefly, Jane, I'm gonna say this because I'm gonna hint back on that IQ thing that we were on earlier. But an intelligent woman makes for a much better partner than somebody who doesn't have the intelligence. Why? What will an intelligent woman know? She'll usually understand economics. So that means that she usually won't live beyond her means. Usually, if she really has a thorough understanding of how money works, then she'll know how money works. Okay? She usually will know anatomy and physiology, which means this joke ain't gonna be walking around stank. Because stank is a deal breaker for just about all men. Stank is a deal breaker. And if it's not, then you're the problem.
I tell my fiance and my daughter all the time, and it started coming back on me now, so I gotta watch when I say it. But every once in a while, when I gotta check with them, I'll say, "Hey, you're representing me out there." But now I got to say that shit to me when I go out of the house with socks and flip flops. Like, hey, man, hey, I know you're comfortable. You're representing us out there. Like, you know what? You're absolutely correct. Let me go ahead and check that.
No, and she'll understand politics because she'll know the things that are going around. See, intelligence is really something that should be pushed as something that's admirable, not something that's looked down on. I tell people all the time, man, listen, go get you a nerd. First thing first, nerds be bad up underneath them glasses. You take them glasses off, it's some nerds that's out there, shut it down. Joker be Drea Michelle up underneath them glasses.
And they don't even, some of them don't even know what they got, too. That's the best part.
I'm telling you. But I tell people though, but
it's crazy though. Like when you and I were in school, man, like it's only, I think, and I could even be wrong because I don't consider myself hip to popular culture. I know what I like, but I don't purposely stay up with what's popular. When we were in school, being the dude in the gifted classes, being the dude in the magnet program was not cool. I had to defend myself. That's why I got into martial arts specifically.
Yes,
Football got me so far, got myself into trouble, but that's why I got into martial arts, because I was constantly either the overweight kid until high school, and then once I hit high school, I hit a growth spurt and everything balanced out, thankfully, or I was the nerd because I was in advanced classes and studying all kinds of shit that nobody else was studying. It's like, well, what the fuck are you up to? You think you're better than that? Like, no, man, I like school. Like, what's the problem? It's just now that that's starting to be valued a little bit more as an asset. You know what I mean? And I think you're dead on with that. Like, it's an undervalued asset. And I think even a little bit further step back, the intelligence quotient of the partner, but the fact that people should be looking for a partner rather than a mate. And the word partner, in my mind, and again, we're getting lost in language, but that word partner incentivizes things like cohabitation, working together within a business, building together mentally, emotionally, and on the family aspect. Those are things you can do with a partner that you can't do with a mate.
Hey, Jay, can I be controversial?
Talk to me, man.
Because we were in high school together. And for all the ones who weren't checking for us, Jay, who shared our melanin content, there were others who didn't share our melanin content, who saw those qualities that we had as admirable qualities.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say that's controversial at all. I'll co-sign all over that.
And the saddest reality is that these were young people who had already been invested in the idea that that a guy who's in advanced classes, who's in the magnet programs, who speaks a certain way, who's not disrespectful and rude, who carries himself in a certain way, who's clean, who presses his pants and his
coming
shirt,
in creased.
who's not, man, come on, man.
Creased.
Come on,
Hey,
man.
if you guys don't want to know, I'm gonna tell you the legend of Donnie Ali. You can cut your finger on that crease. Cut your finger on that crease, folks.
Listen, Jay was so creased up. And then we had the prep style. Jay, we used to throw them with the polo, the collared golf shirts. They weren't ready.
Button to the top, baby.
Button up.
Professional.
With a tight roll in the sleeve. But anyway, but what I'm saying is that a lot of women miss out, Jay.
Absolutely.
Because they don't see that potential. Just like men will miss out if they don't take a look, at the ones who may or may not be doing certain things.
Yeah.
They may see twerking is designed to take your attention. If you are a healthy male, some cheeks moving, of course your attention is supposed to go there. That's how it was supposed to work, right? But twerking is not limited to just the city girls. Every girl can twerk. That's the thing men are never taught. They never taught, listen, that one is going to law school, she can twerk too. And she can twerk just for you.
And she'll raise your kids.
And they'll be smart.
Hey, and have a loving mother, all right?
Exactly. who will tell them, close that door, because I'm about to go in here and twerk for dad. Right? That's how this thing works. Now we about to have a good time. So,
absolutely.
And that's the masculine flame. Masculine frame. The appreciation of women too, Jay. That's another huge thing in masculine frame. The appreciation of feminine women, of women who are women who are beautiful, women's minds, women's intelligence, women's shapes, women's sexuality. None of that stuff is off the table. The appreciation of it, but the respect that goes with it. If that's my brother's woman, nah. I respect that he deserves to enjoy her.
Absolutely. The sanctity of his woman is his own. That's it.
That's it. That's masculinity. Absolutely. That's what's taught by me. And I was raised by wolves when it came to masculinity. So that's the thing. But I have to get young men to understand, choose the woman who chooses you. Choose her, not the woman you got to go choose. Choose the woman that chooses you. And you'll usually choose the right one because she'll see something in you. When others don't see it, they be like, he lame, he a duck, or whatever. Okay, that ain't the one you wanted, homie. Especially if she belongs to the streets, then that's what she belongs.
All right, she was never yours anyway. Exactly. You mentioned something a few minutes ago about making masculinity cool again, making masculinity popular again. I'd love for you to expand on that in your efforts, but to lead in, I will say that I think there's a definite lack, obviously, right? But within seeing and recognizing that lack, I have a sister that's 10 years younger than me. I've got a daughter. I've got a fiance. There's women I care about in my life in all different aspects of their lives, and I can talk to them because I know, at least from being within a certain radius of me, there's some level of rational thinking going on. They've heard me talk enough to at least gotten one or two good ideas in there. So I can ask things like, my sister that's a little bit younger, I see X, Y, and Z in society. What do you see, or what looks attractive to you as a heterosexual female and a male partner? And things that I'm getting consistently is that most females of a dating age or a coupling age are shocked and appalled at the lack of masculinity in the dating pool, and that's what they're looking for. They want men. They want manly guys. They want guys that like doing stuff. And I'm not going to mention anybody specifically because I don't want to embarrass her specifically, but somebody that's confided in me recently about somebody that they were dating. And it's absurd to me because I didn't think it was serious, but using their makeup, found out that he was using her makeup, and it became an issue in sharing bathroom time because he was using her makeup. And I'm like, I don't want to, your dating life is your dating life. That's cool. Whatever makes you happy is cool. As long as you're being a productive individual, awesome. But when you come to me with an issue, obviously I'm going to ask follow-up questions, right? So when I'm asking these questions, I'm like, well, who did you think you were getting into a relationship with when this set off? Well, I liked his clothes and da. We had a good conversation. I was like, okay. Did you want a friend and a dress-up buddy, or did you want a partner and a boyfriend or a male companion? And there was a bit of pause, and I think she realized what I was asking her. She was like, like, yeah, you picked a friend to dress up with and tried to make him a boyfriend. There's a big difference. You might even be able to transition him into boyfriend, but you're not going to be able to get him to be a man for you if he wasn't a man to begin with. And it goes the opposite direction too, right? As you're talking about picking the right partner, choosing the woman that chooses you, it's not incumbent, in my opinion, and please correct me if you feel a different way, it's not incumbent upon me to turn city girl into woman. I need to choose a woman.
Yeah. And there's a reason why hoes will sell themselves for a pimp. There's a reason why. Mm-hmm. It's because she sees in the pimp something that she needs, and her caring wants to care for his coldness. Now he uses that, he manipulates that by just returning coldness, and it's a perpetual cycle. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason why feminine women usually will attract masculine men. And there's a reason why masculine women usually will attract feminine men. And it's the caring in instinct that's in women. Women want to do something for a man. They want to. So when a hoe goes out and she hits the stroll, she's doing that because she wants to do something for the pimp. Now, I hate to get in the gutter with it like this, but I'm just using this as a realistic analogy.
Mhm.
The pimp returns it with coldness because he has to consistently reaffirm that whatever that hoe does, she's not good enough because he don't need her for nothing. So that clicks a button in her head. She says, you know what? I'm going to go get this money for him because he needs that money. And I'm going to be a vessel in that because what she wants to do is make him the best version of himself, usually. Flip it on his head. There are masculine women whose entire goal is to take away from men. The threat is his masculinity. So she has to make him into her polar opposite. There's a great book called The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. I think all men should read that book. It's a fantastic book, but the reason is that polarity exists, regardless to whether it's male, female, regardless to whether it's top, bottom, or butch and femme. Polarity has to exist. You have to have polarity. So when you have a woman that's masculine and she meets a man, her job is to create polarity. So she's gonna tear at the bit of masculinity that he has so that he represents the feminine and she represents the masculine. That's gonna happen every time because it has to happen, or else they have to go their own ways.
Absolutely.
So oftentimes when women find men who are willing to be feminine for them, then if that woman is already feminine and that man wants to be feminine, then that woman will go find polarity in somebody else. She's gonna find that masculine. That's gonna happen. No, normally in lesbian couples, you have what's called a butch and you have a femme, or you have a masculine and you have a feminine, right? And I've been told this. Now, I don't know how accurate it is because I'm not lesbian, but I've been told this. If I was, I'd be the worst lesbian ever. I definitely would be the most unattractive lesbian.
I don't know, man.
I would, bro. I'll be giving them a run for their money. If I was really, anyway.
I've seen a couple with a beard game better than yours, bro. That's all I'm saying.
I'm telling you, especially when I don't shave. Yeah. But anyway, Jay, listen to me now. So when you have a lesbian couple, right? And you have a very masculine lesbian, you have a very feminine lesbian. Usually, and you have enter a masculine man, usually the threat will be perceived by the masculine lesbian. Because it's a competition of masculinity right there. Right? Because the polar opposite is always pulling for the masculinity. So they'll either pull toward the woman or they'll pull toward the man, but they're pulling for masculinity. Same when you have a duality of people. When you have a masculine woman, she's going to pull at that man's masculinity. He's going to pull and he's going to start representing what he thinks is feminine qualities. That's going to happen. If you have a feminine man and a feminine woman and there's nothing to pull at, then that feminine man's going to be moving toward masculinity or somebody else's masculinity, and that feminine woman's going to be moving towards somebody else's masculinity. Usually that's the only way that they can make that polarity work. So you have a world, a dating pool now, where men have been taught that masculinity is something that's wrong, and that it's not something that is a problem, but it is the problem. The masculinity is the problem. So when that's the case, men then are coming in gun shy because masculinity is seen as invasive. And so women are saying, I don't want that. I don't want a man who's masculine. having never seen a man who's masculine, just seeing bad representatives of masculinity like Harvey Weinstein. You know what I mean? Who's also a very poor example of masculinity. But that's what they see. They see a threat. So they tend to gravitate away from those kind of guys and to gravitate to men who are more feminine. And
they themselves become what they consider the beacon or the redefinition of the masculinity in their lives. It makes sense. It makes a tremendous amount of sense. And as we're talking about this, you can kind of see how it would lead to some of the deeper mental health issues that we've got in our country, when we've got generations of men and women that are being societally pushed or incentivized away from their genetic identity, from the ingrained feelings that some of them may have, because society says it's wrong. If you're a able-bodied, strong, beautiful woman, it's a bad thing if you want to be a mother. You should go out and have your career, right? Or at the same time, if the man is the sole breadwinner and X, Y, and Z, if you live in the state of Florida, obviously I know you do, but if you get a divorce and your husband was a sole breadwinner, all the negative things that can happen to the man in terms of alimony, child support, blah, 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 blah. Even if they want to be an active role in their child's life, those things are disincentivized by the state. So all of this stuff creates a vacuum, in my opinion, of identity. And we end up with just a pool of people staring at each other, not knowing who the fuck is who, trying to figure it out and dumping all their shit on each other, and nobody being able to figure out which way is up.
Yeah, young men thinking there's something wrong with them because they just want a hug. Young men who want their father to hug them, thinking there's something wrong. Well, I don't understand why, or I go out and gang bang with my homeboys. Why you gang bang with your homeboys? Because I wanted another man that was respected and that whom I respected to tell me I was good enough.
Acknowledgement. Yeah, acknowledge me.
That's it.
Yeah. Or there's not a man in the house. This is the only man on the block that I can respect, is the dude trapping down the street. So I'm going to go down to him because there's no man in my house. And I need that approval. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And not just on the, obviously we're speaking from the perspective that we identify with, but women too. I mean, I'm not going to speak for any females, but I can only imagine what that feels like, being a woman, feeling nature. I want to be a loving mother. I want to have kids. I want to raise a family. I want to be there for my husband. I want to be an honorable, loving, supportive wife. That's not a bad thing, but it's disincentivized. So like, what kind of issues will that cause in the psyche of a woman or a young lady that grows up feeling like, you know what? I want to be, my career goal is to be the best fucking mother possible and raise some amazing children that change the world. Like, that gets lost, and it can cause a crater or deficit, like you said. And now they're constantly chasing that feeling of lack. Why am I not good enough? What's wrong with me? Why can't I fit in with society? Blah, 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 blah. And we end up where we're at. That's powerful stuff, man. I want to get your opinion on one other thing, because what you mentioned before, and you really got my brain turning here, man. I'm loving this conversation so far. Man, yeah, I love catching up with you, Doug. This is great. We're gonna have to do this again too, for sure.
Most definitely, man. Most
definitely. I'm glad just getting to talk to you, but when we do some of our panel shows, I'd love to have you on for real, and just generally dive into some of our philosophy discussions would be awesome too, man. But like you mentioned before, the future, next generations, making masculinity cool again. What are you doing? What can we do to affect future generations outside of having 10 kids apiece? Obviously, we can all do that, right? To affect.
Oh, it won't be no more. Won't be no more.
For you.
Dr. Stein put the clamp on it. So
shut it down. Shut it down. All right, fair enough. But what can we do? And I don't like to make it an us versus them thing, but to shore up the numbers of logical, rational individuals that aren't afraid to embrace their epigenetic role?
I think, Jay, and this might sound callous or cold, but I think when the younger men see the older men getting the rewards that they wanted, I think that will make the difference. I think, Huey P. Newton said people learn best by observation and participation. I think that when people can observe you, use you for example, right? Beautiful fiance, beautiful daughter, beautiful business, doing free, because freedom means a lot to men. Pursuit of purpose is freedom for men. It's security for women. It's freedom for men.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are able to see and hear you as an example of freedom, oh man, you're talking about lights going off and people want to know, well, how did you do it? Because what your model is, you can apply to anything. You can apply that model to anything.
Absolutely.
In life. You can apply the model of jiu-jitsu to anything in life. My father told me this. My father was my first martial arts instructor. My father said, everything is jiu-jitsu. He said, you just gotta apply it. Apply it. Every situation that you get into is jiu-jitsu. You just gotta apply it. So I think that when people are able to see what they would want in themselves, in you, then they will model themselves after you. I think as far as with me, I think that when people think of historian, they think of a stuffy old person with disheveled hair and like this cardigan, and they're stuck in the archives. What is he? He's a historian, he's almost like a mixture of Gandalf and,
with the elbow patches on his jacket.
Right. So I think that
I might be the only person that has the benefit of, when I hear historian now, that thinks of a heavyweight champion, grappling champion.
But Jay, that's what it has to be. I think that's what it has to be.
It can be all of it. It's a beautiful thing,
it can
baby.
Be, oh man, you can be beautiful. It all. And you can be it all, and you don't necessarily have to be giving Satan a blowjob with blood in your shoes. You ain't got to do it, man. You don't have to go that route. You can try to go that route, but you don't have to go that route. You know what I mean? You don't have to feel like you've been bullied your whole life, so you go slap a dude who weighs 150 pounds in the middle of the world because you got side-eyed by your broad who still want to bang a ghost. Yep. You don't have to be that. You can be a historian. You can be an academician. You can be a person who works in this world and still have a baddie on your arm, you know what I mean, and a Cuban in your hand, and you can still be cool. You can still be these things, but you have to be comfortable in your skin and you have to pursue your purpose. So I think that we can do it. I think that we're doing it. I think that we have to stop being afraid of the gynocracy first. We got to stop being afraid of it. We got to stop seeing women and being afraid. We have to see women and see counterparts. We can't see women anymore and be intimidated by women. There's another pimp saying that says a hoe is come and going. So she's coming. Women are, and I hate to use the two, but I'm just doing it to give us some grounding.
Absolutely.
But people come into our life going. Our experiences with them are what makes them lasting. Absolutely. So I think that when men are able to see it that way and not see it from a position of lack, like you said, from a point of lack, a point of scarcity, and a point of fear, I think we'll turn this thing around, man.
That's beautiful, man. I appreciate everything that you've got to offer. I appreciate the energy you're putting out into the world. I appreciate how, even though we're just now linking back up, we've been working in parallel this whole time. It's reassuring to know that I'm not the only one that the universe is speaking to in this way. I'm not the only one hearing the message. and that we can get together some years later and be able to collaborate and make it a little bit louder is even more powerful, man. So with all that being said, I would love it if you want to go ahead and plug some stuff. We'll go ahead and start wrapping things up, brother. Where can everybody reach you?
man.
Where can they find out more about what you're up to, more about urban survival? What do you got going on? Talk to us.
You can follow Urban Survival at urban_survival on Instagram. You can follow my page at Donnie Ali-McClendon on Facebook. I can't guarantee that I won't be controversial, but I can guarantee that I will never be unreal. What I say to you will be the real deal for real. But more than anything, follow Aetherial. Follow Aetherial LLC. Follow Aetherial. Follow JP Harry. Follow this man, because this dude is on it. And listen, he been on it for a minute. This man been on it since, and I put that on the neighborhood.
I appreciate that,
I'm just saying,
I appreciate that, man. So there is it's a philosophical belief that I have, and I'm doing my best to spread it around. But the only way to counteract negative speech and negative ideas is with good speech and good ideas. It doesn't do us any good to sit around and bitch and moan and complain about it. We have to affect culture. We have to put it out there for people to see and see that we're out here doing it. You are doing it. You're an example, and I look forward to doing more with you, brother. I thank you for your time, and thank you for joining us, my man.
Always, homie. Always. You're the best, bro.
I appreciate you, dude. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you.
As time goes by.
I gotta dig down to the pimp bag for this one.